computer organization, and the topic is computer memory and how the large scale integration has been incorporated into the different versions of computer. Fine. So now let us see that how this has been started. Okay, so that is the thing. So now let us see that how this thing has been gone past, okay, in the few years. Okay, and then we will see the content. Okay, so and accordingly we will continue. All right, that is the thing. So now let us see, I am just sharing my screen. Okay, and then we will come to that. Fine. So in this regard, so now let us start with, okay, last class we had done what the basic organization of computers, where the central processing unit and the different parts of the computer I had explained. All right, so that is the thing. So there was control unit, there was arithmetic logic unit, and the other units as such. Okay, other units as such, the input unit and the output unit, input and output devices, everything was there. Okay, so today let us see this, what are the things that we are going to continue with. Okay, so now you see out here the large scale integration. Okay, during the 1970s, the large scale integration of electronic circuits allowed integration of complete CPU on a single chip and called microprocessor. Because of the invention of the microprocessor, the size of the computer has been drastically reduced. Okay, Moore's law predicted the exponential growth, okay, in the number of transistors that could be assembled in a single microchip. In 1980s, the processing power of computer increased exponentially by integrating around 3 million components on a small size chip termed as very large scale integrated circuits. Okay, VLSI chips we call it. Okay, further advancements in technology has made it feasible to fabricate high density of transistor and components, okay, approximately 106 components on a single IC called super large scale integration, SLSI. All right, so that we can see out here how the thing has been gone past. Okay, you see out here IBM introduced its first personal computer for the home user in 1981, and Apple introduced Macintosh machines. Okay, so number of transistor you can see per integrated circuits out here, how it has been increased. You can see generation by generation. These are the all Intel microprocessors. All right, 1 minute, just a minute. Let's see who has joined. Someone has joined. All right, Gaurav Kundu. Okay, Gaurav, you should be in time. Aditya Khan also. Okay, so that is the thing. So you should join in time always. Okay, that is the thing. So now let us see it once again. Go back to the thing. So you can see out here how the number of transistor has been increased. Okay, so in this way, now this is the present generation. Almost 10 billion transistors are there in the microprocessors. All right, that is the thing. So now let us see out here from 1940 to 2020 right now. Okay, so Pentium 4, and now iCore 7 is containing, Core 2 Duo is also there, and iCore 7 is containing around 10 billion of 1 billion transistors over here. You can see out here. Okay, that is the thing. So now you see out here what is actually the thing here. Apple has introduced Macintosh since 1984. The popularity of the PC surged by the introduction of graphical user interface. Okay, best operating systems by Microsoft and others in place of computers with only command line interface like Unix and DOS. Actually, Unix and DOS was where the operating system, they are having only the CUI, means like character user interface, applications. Okay, around 1990s, the growth of World Wide Web further accelerated mass usage of computers, and thereafter computers have become an indispensable part of everyday life. Okay, that is the things. Clear. So nowadays also we are not feeling very comfortable when we are not using computer. Further, with the introduction of laptops, personal computing was made portable to a great extent. This was followed by smartphones, tablets, and other personal digital assistants. Now we are using the smartphones and all. Okay, these devices have leveraged the technological advancements in processor miniaturization. Okay, further the processor got miniaturized. Okay, miniature means like it has become small in size. Okay, and finally we have computers on our palm. That is the palm top computers actually we are talking about. They are having the faster memory, high speed data, and connectivity mechanisms. The next wave of computing devices includes the wearable gadgets such as smartwatches, lenses, headbands, headphones, okay, earbuds, all these things are there. Further, smart appliances are becoming a part of Internet of Things, that is called IoT, okay, by leveraging the power of artificial intelligence. So these are all coming under the category of AI devices. Okay, you can say that nowadays the many of us are having the Alexa and smart Google Home at home. Okay, so that is the thing. So with which you can also, anytime you ask some questions, it will be answered to you. Okay, that is the thing. Now we are coming to the computer memory. A computer system needs memory to store the data and instructions for processing. Okay, whenever we talk about the memory of a computer system, we usually talk about the main or primary memory. The secondary memory is used to store data, instructions and results permanently for future use. All right, that is the thing. So what are the units of memory? A computer system uses binary numbers to store and process data. The binary digits 0 and 1, which are the basic units of memory, are called bits. Further, these bits are grouped together, okay, to form words. Okay, a 4-bit word is called a nibble. Okay, examples of nibble are what? 1001, 1010, all these things. Okay, 0010. A 2-nibble word is a 8-bit word, is called a byte. For example, you can see out here that there is a combination of 8 bits. Okay, all right, that is the thing. So now let us see that what are the other units of memory. All right, just a minute. What are the other units of memory? So let us see that what are the other units of memory for this. So here you can see whatever it is, actually whatever is a byte is a string of 8 bits. Okay, so that is a combination of 8 bits, you can say. So 0100 and 0110, all these things are there. Like any other standard unit, bytes are grouped together to make bigger chunks or units of memory. Okay, so now next table we can see out here the measurements of units for digital data stored in storage devices. All right, that is the thing. So now let us come over there and see out here how the measurement to be taken off. Okay, so this is the thing. Okay, measurements of units for digital data, that is unit description, all these things are there. KB means 1024 bytes makes 1 KB. Okay, 1024 KB makes 1 MB, and 1024 megabyte MB makes 1 GB, and 1024 GB makes 1 TB. And after that we are having the petabyte, exabyte, zettabyte and yottabyte is also available. So that is actually increasing by 10 to the power 10 actually. So it is actually an advancement of 10 to the power 10 if you are taking, then 2 to the power 10 if you are taking, then what is happening? So you are getting the next higher unit. Okay, that is the thing. Clear? 2 to the power 10 is actually how much? It is actually 1024. Okay, so you can calculate it. Okay, human beings memorize many things over a lifetime and recall from memory to make a decision or some action. However, we do not rely on our memory completely, and we make notes and store important data and information using other media such as notebook, manual, journal, document, etc. Similarly, computer has have two types of memory, that is called primary memory and secondary memory. Now let us see what is primary memory. Primary memory is an essential component of a computer system. Program and data are loaded into the primary memory before processing. The CPU interacts directly with the primary memory to perform read or write operation. It is of two types, namely random access memory and read-only memory. And RAM is volatile, that is, as long as the power is supplied to the computer, it retains the data in it. But as soon as the power supply is turned off, all the contents of RAM are wiped out. Okay, so it will be totally erased. So it is used to store the data temporarily while the computer is functioning. Whenever the computer is started or a software application is launched, the required program and data are loaded into RAM for processing. Clear? So whatever you are getting on your desktop and all, when you are just loading the operating system into the memory, means it has been done by the computer itself by some using some program known as BIOS program. We will see it later. Okay, that is only on the RAM. Okay, so on the window, whatever you are seeing, whatever work you are doing, that is on the RAM only. Okay, so that is and RAM is volatile always. Okay, whenever the power goes up, the content of RAM also will be lost. Okay, so RAM is usually referred to as main memory, and it is faster than the secondary memory or any other storage devices. All right, that is the thing. So now here on the other hand, ROM is non-volatile, which means its contents are not lost even when the power is turned off. Okay, so it is used as a small but faster permanent storage for the contents which are rarely changed. Okay, for example, the startup program, that is known as bootloader, okay, that loads the operating system into the primary memory, is stored in ROM. Actually, the process of loading the operating system into the primary memory, okay, by the ROM BIOS, okay, is known as is known as booting of the machine. So it is actually having the bootstrap loader program stored into it that actually activates the secondary storage where the operating system has been loaded. Okay, if it finds the operating system fine, otherwise it simply sends the message disk boot failure. Okay, so that means the machine cannot be booted, means machine is system is unable to load the operating system, okay, into the memory. All right, that is the thing. Clear? So that is why ROM is actually non-volatile. It has been written once it has been written, and it is having some they are having some company actually. They are having their own BIOS setup actually, and they write the program over there, and it has been permanently stored into the ROM chip. Okay, so whenever the machine gets started, okay, so the ROM first get activated and it's try to search the operating system by its bootstrap loader program. Afterwards this function will be totally off. Okay, so once the computer starts loading the operating system into the memory, that is in the RAM. Okay, so once it has been completed, we can say that machine is ready for functioning. This process is known as booting. Okay, this process is known as what? Booting. All right, that is the thing. So the booting process is what? Loading of operating system into RAM, in one word. Okay, that is the thing. Now the cache memory is what? RAM is faster than the secondary storage, but not as fast as a computer processor. So because of RAM, a CPU may have to slow down. Okay, to speed up the operations of the central processing unit, a very high speed memory is placed between the CPU and the primary memory known as cache. Okay, from its definition it is quite clear that in order to do the faster access of the data content that to be processed, okay, CPU has to run fast. Okay, so but the ROM is faster but not faster as the CPU. So what is happening? CPU may have slow down in its processing. So in between CPU and the primary memory, we are keeping one kind of memory. Okay, that is known as cache memory. All right, it stores the copies of the data from frequently accessed primary memory locations, thus reducing the average time required to access data from primary memory. All right, that is the thing, from primary memory. Clear? When the CPU needs some data, it first examines the cache. In case the requirement is met, it is read from the cache. Otherwise the primary memory is accessed, means it is not intervening the primary memory first. What has been intervened? That one, the cache memory. Okay, so if the cache memory is actually meeting the demand, in that case it will not access the primary memory, otherwise it will access the primary memory. All right, that's the thing. Now the secondary memory comes. As primary memory has limited storage capacity and is either volatile or read-only memory, thus a computer system needs some auxiliary or secondary memory storage to permanently store the data or instructions for future use. Okay, suppose you have drawn a nice graphic, okay, in computer, in Adobe Photoshop, or in some other photo based software, or you have written a nice program. Okay, so that needs to be stored. Okay, so where you will store? Primary memory is not permanent. Okay, so and in the ROM area you cannot store anything, so only RAM is there, but in the RAM you can see your work temporarily. That is the temporary storage. Okay, so when the power goes off or if you are switching off the machine, the content will be totally removed. Okay, so in that case what could you do? You can store it in the secondary storage device. In the alongside figure you can see the images and all, pen drive, hard disk drive, CD, DVD, memory card, tape drive, everything has been given. So all these are actually known as the secondary storage, where you can store your data permanently. The secondary memory is non-volatile and has larger storage capacity than primary memory. It is slower and cheaper than main memory, but it cannot be accessed directly by the CPU. Contents of secondary storage. Okay, contents of secondary storage, what happens? The need to be first brought into the main memory for the CPU to access. First it has to be brought into the main memory, then CPU can process it or can access it. The examples of secondary memory devices, you can say hard disk, that is the HDD, CD, DVD, memory card, or flash drives are also available. These are the solid state memory device. The memory card and pen drive are the solid state memory device, because here the data have been stored electronically, not by any mechanical process. Okay, that is the thing. Clear? And tape drive is a sequential data storage. Okay, that is the thing. So however, these days there are secondary storage devices like SSD. This was actually I was talking about. SSD means solid state memory devices, okay, which support very fast data transfer speed as compared to earlier HDDs. Okay, also data transfer between computers have become easier and simple due to the availability of small sized and portable flash or pen drives. Okay, that is the thing. Now see what is happening out here. Data transfer between memory and CPU. What happens? Data need to be transferred between the CPU and primary memory, as well as between the primary memory and secondary memory. So data transferred between different components of a computer system using physical wires called bus. Okay, for example, a bus is used, actually it is a data communication channel. Bus is used for data transfer between a USB port and hard disk, between a hard disk and a main memory. So what is the full form of USB, students? USB means universal serial bus, the parallel port of a computer. Okay, and for faster data access. Okay, and whenever you want to connect any smart devices or any other kind of devices, it is having a plug and play feature. Okay, buses of three types: data bus to transfer data between different components, and address bus to transfer address between CPU and main memory, and the address of the memory location that the CPU wants to read or write from is specified in the address bus, like when you are declaring the variables and all. So it is actually the function of the address bus to take the information, okay, and to fetch the data, then CPU processes it. Okay, all the things. Okay, that is the thing. So this is the address bus. Fine. So now you can see out here the different type of buses out here. They have shown in this diagram out here. Okay, that is the CPU, memory, and the input output. So how the buses are working? Okay, data bus, direct access, and then CPU, and then address bus. Here is the access and CPU and the control bus. Okay, similarly memory bus. Okay, you see that is totally dependent upon the control bus only, and the data bus, it is has to be passed through the control bus, address bus, control bus, and then to the memory. Okay, and then input output as well, it has been shown. So these are actually altogether what? System bus. So data transfer between the components through system bus. Okay, that is the thing. Okay, and control bus to communicate the control signals between different components of a computer. So all these three buses collectively make the system bus. Okay, so all these three, that means the data bus, address bus, and control bus, collectively known as what? Collectively known as system bus. All right. So as the CPU interacts directly with main memory, any data entered from input device or the data to be accessed from hard disk needs to be placed in the main memory for further processing. The data is then transferred between CPU and main memory using bus. The CPU places on the address bus, but the address of the main memory location from which it wants to read data or to write data. Okay, while executing the instructions, the CPU specifies the read or write control signal through the control bus. Okay, so it takes the signal from the control bus, then the data processing takes place. Okay, so here is the total interaction of CPU between CPU and data has been described. Okay, so any data, this line is important, any data entered from input device or the data to be accessed from hard disk needs to be placed in the main memory, okay, for further processing. Without that it is not possible. Okay, so that is actually the little disadvantages there of the secondary storage, but the thing is that it is very important also have a secondary storage, otherwise we will not be able to store the data permanently. All right, that is the thing. So now as the CPU may require to read data from main memory or write data to main memory, a data bus is bidirectional. Okay, a data bus is bidirectional in nature, but the control bus and address bus are unidirectional. Okay, to write the data into the memory, okay, the CPU places the data on the data bus, which is then returned to the specific address provided through the address bus, and in case of read operation the CPU specifies the address and the data is placed on the data bus by a dedicated hardware. Is called memory controller. Okay, the memory controller manages the flow of data into the out of the computer's main memory, that is in the output device. Okay, that is the thing. So these three buses are working, okay, together, coordinated together, and then finally the data processing takes place. All right, that is the thing. Now you see, come out here, what are microprocessor? In earlier days, a computer's CPU used to occupy a large room or multiple cabinets. However, with the advancement in technology, the physical size of CPU has reduced, and it is now possible to place a CPU on a single microchip. Means the size of the CPU has been reduced. Okay, a processor which is implemented on a single microchip is called a microprocessor. Nowadays, okay, almost all the CPUs are microprocessor, hence the terms are used synonymously for practical purpose. Okay, microprocessor is a small sized electronic component, okay, small sized electronic component inside a computer that carries out various tasks involved in data processing as well as arithmetic and logical operation also. These days a microprocessor is built over an integrated circuit comprising million of small components like resistors, transistors, diode, integrated circuits, etc. Okay, so what is CPU? A processor which is implemented on a single microchip is called microprocessor, and nowadays all the CPUs are microprocessor, hence the terms are used synonymously for practical purpose. So all our modern day PCs are equipped with this kind of microprocessor. So students, I have explained till microprocessor today. Okay, in the next class I will come up with some more system based information to you. Okay, so till now you just read this one. Okay, and the live class recording will reach to you through YouTube channel. Okay, YouTube link, there also you will be able to see the content and you can note down whatever you feel important. Okay, in fact everything is important out here, all the things has to be read very nicely. Okay, and okay, thoroughly clear, understood. So that is the thing. So these are all about that. Today I have taught you what microprocessor, buses, that is the system bus, as well as the memory of the computer. All right students, thank you.